Okay, good morning and welcome to every single one of you guys. It is Friday. It is Pounds for Breakfast. As always, I am your host, Dane Funamast. Guys, we're about to have a ton of fun together. First and foremost, Tumelo, Lana, Renisha, as well as Keegan, guys. Shout out to every single one of you for always being right in those comments, perfectly always on time, guys. We're about to have a ton of fun as we move into the wrap up for the markets this week. Now, just first and foremost, there are going to be some big changes and big announcements coming in the next week. We're going to see a new look, a new feel, and really going to take everything that you guys have said, your observations, your suggestions into account for the change of what we're going to be doing in terms of the new show. So just first and foremost, your comments are hugely appreciated. Every single one of them we've taken into account, and you're going to be seeing something very special evolve over the next week or so. Now, just for everybody that wonders, do people who present sometimes sit in their shorts or underwear? And in some cases, yes, they do sit in their shorts. So that was a question a few people asked me about that I thought I should just address. That's a little bit of Friday fun. But as always, we are going to jump back into the markets. And obviously, we're going to have a look a little bit more seriously at what we are looking at today. Now, always, we're going to start on the local front. Not too much happening. We're continuing to see the theme that we've seen over the past couple of weeks, really, and it's mostly linked between Eskom as well as politics. So nothing new there, nothing new to kind of really dive deep into, but we are going to look at it anyway. And some of our favorite friends of Gupta's keep coming back into the headlines. So let's have a look at what is happening right there. Okay, brilliant. So we're seeing that a Gupta-linked company is essentially linked to the Guptas in terms of some mails that were essentially said that they were off the edge or off paper, essentially in partnership, right? Bain & Company has since not yet come forward and not yet given us a statement on that, but we're going to continue to see, we're talking about information and things that happened 6-7 years ago that they're still trying to uncover and sort of puzzle together. So again, we're going to continue to see that. I feel for, as being a South African, I see these kind of things and I'm sort of just like, whatever, right? And I think many of you feel the same way. But I do believe to a certain extent on really important subjects that we really care about, we need to start getting a lot more active and looking at who we support in terms of these issues and how we get some of these things resolved. So just a food for thought there, just to give a little bit of consideration. Now, in terms of, there's an article on Yahoo Finance that I really, really like this morning. And the title of the article is, don't be a hero, right? Stock market eventually will roar back as history shows. Now, this is in support of our Wednesday analysis. We had a special edition, Dollars for Lunch, where I took you guys through the data in terms of the past and what we've seen from the markets. And this is a really great table that really sort of drives home the exact same sentiment that I was feeling when doing these analyses. So this goes all the way back about 50 years. And ultimately, after every big crash, right, where the stock market has fallen more than 20%. So that's kind of just the benchmark they used, where the stock market moved less or more than 20%. They're essentially using all of those. Now, a lot of those were crashes and or recessions, but some are excluded here because we have a lot more than just the 10 that they've listed right here. So if we have a look at 1957, 1962, 66, 70, 73, 82, 87, 2001, 2008, housing crisis, as well as the most recent pandemic, what we can see is that in most cases, right, in many of these cases, we see that within 6 months of that crisis, markets have recovered or do recover, right? Up to a year later, the majority have recovered, and 2 or 3 years later, only with the exception of the dot-com bubble, as well as the current situation we're in, because we don't have that data of 3 years since 2020, in most cases, the stock market recovers and recovers substantially, double digits, right? 60%, 50%, 40%. And what this explains is that, we don't have to time the market, right? We don't have to be the ones timing when that recovery will happen, but we simply need to observe and understand that based on past data, we do see these recoveries happen. But I do believe it's important that having the skill to look at price action and breakouts and when these things may potentially happen, is hugely advantageous to those who understand how to trade the markets. Now, again, we speak about recessions and these, gloomy economic times. We don't see them as gloomy. We see it as opportunity. And why is that? And the table really demonstrates that in a perfect scenario, right? If we look at the 2020 start of the pandemic, right? The initial dip, right? Markets dipped in the region of about 30%. But within 6 months of the start of the pandemic, markets had already recovered, right? Markets had, in essence, pulled back well over 35% and made some gains already on that pullback, right? So what we need to understand is while the rest of the world was dealing with lockdown, was dealing with businesses closing, dealing with unemployment, dealing with all these other things, the market had already recovered and made already profits on that move, right? 35% in a year is some really big moves. So what we need to understand is how the wealthier get wealthier, right? How the wealthier build more legacy wealth is through looking at these types of metrics. And you can do the exact same thing just by simply being a trader and having the right information on your side. Now, sticking with time this morning, and we want to move into the fundamentals for today. We can see that the British pound got some GDP data, both for the last quarter, Q2, as well as in relation to year on year for Q2. And the pound is doing really well, right? The pound is had a 0.2% quarter on quarter gross domestic product growth rate. And the year on year comparison to last year this time, or last year Q2, is sitting at positive 4.4%. So the pound really giving out some really good numbers here. We may need to start paying more attention to what the pound is doing and the euro is doing, and pay a little bit less attention to what the dollar is doing, allow the dollar to do what it needs to do. Now, in the next hour from now, we also have unemployment change on the euro, CPI on the euro, which is going to be hugely volatile. That's coming in 11 GMT plus 2. And then finally, we at 2:30 have core PCE price index for the dollar. But again, being Friday, we don't see too many big fundamental moves. But again, there can be big moves for the week. Now, again, quickly moving swiftly into the analysis side of things, and just really talking about what we've seen over the past week, right? We've seen a massive bear market over the past week. There's a lot of potential signs for recovery, but ultimately we've seen a very big bear week. Now, if you guys look at the past week where we saw a very similar thing, Friday had some massive recoveries, right? We started Monday with huge gains in the indices side of the market, just on that particular Friday, right? And that's very important to look at because we could very well see a very similar thing in the markets today. So something you definitely want to pay attention to over the course of the day. So moving swiftly then directly into the dollar index this morning, as we do, we just want to observe and point out that we are starting to show signs that we're failing that resistance level on the dollar, right? We still have a little bit of a market structure that does need to come back to reality. And we are currently sitting, retesting that support that we broke out of. And ultimately, any move past this level will signal widespread dollar weakness. And that is where we're going to potentially start looking for the next week. As I've said in past analyses, the dollar is way too strong for, where it potentially should be, right? And I believe that we could start to see this weakness take over specifically and set the tone for the next 2 months of this year. Now, again, being prepared, opportunity coming together, that is what we're looking to capitalize on. So definitely something we want to pay a little bit more attention to over the coming week. Now, very quickly moving into Euro USD this morning, as we have a look at that bounce off support that we identified yesterday, Euro USD is trending nicely off of support. Now, I don't particularly like buying off a bear market, right? Unless we see some break in structure. So buying off support from a scalping perspective, no issues there. But ultimately, right, that move that we identified 2 or 3 days ago ultimately has resulted in Euro USD making some sort of pullback. However, I would not like to be buying in a very heavily bear trending market. I'm looking for a potential break on the Euro USD. And I'm looking for the region of about €1 buying $1 and about 24 pips. So 1.0024 is ideally that zone that I'm looking to break out and where we will start to consider Euro USD longs, right? Again, and inversely, should we fail that level and we show signs of weakness to the downside, we can utilize market structure to start looking for currency shorts on the euro dollar. Now, moving into USD ZAR this morning, USD ZAR has been a topic of discussion. I enjoy trading USD ZAR. They call it the rattlesnake because it pretty much does exactly the opposite of what you would expect for markets, right? It's pretty much the only currency I've seen outside of the weird dynamics we've seen on the dollar in recent days, where unemployment can go up, there can be rolling blackouts, GDP can be in the floor, and yet the South African rand gets stronger, right? And inversely, we do some good things and the South African rand loses value. So that's why it's called the rattlesnake, because when all data points to common sense, turns around and bites you on the finger. All right, so we are sitting at that 78.6 today. Again, should we see, and how we would time this is as follows, right? We've got a decent amount of support here. I'm going to use a little bit more time on this one, and we'll fly through indices in a second. But ultimately, we have this pullback, and we're currently sitting on that 78.6. For those of you who want a deeper long-term analysis, go have a look at our previous shows. We've dived a lot deeper into ZAR in the past. But ultimately, we're sitting at that 78.6. Looking back at the dollar index, should we start to get that continuation to the downside, and we start to see the dollar really losing momentum and failing to break through a substantial resistance in something along that, in those terms, should we move further down on the dollar index, I definitely think it could give us some sort of sign that we could potentially fail at 78.6. But again, the dollar being the dollar, should we start to see a breakout of resistance of this last little bear move that we're essentially seeing for the past 2 days, ever since we got that data, that weekend data on the dollar, should we get a breakout to the top side, I would then heavily consider getting long into USD ZAR towards the top side. So that is definitely going to be one of the items I'm definitely be watching over the course of this morning as well as today. Now, moving into indices this morning, as we discussed yesterday afternoon, really looking at what those timeframes are that we see those reversals. So we observed the whole of this week that we're getting that that trend direction change around about 5:15, 5:30 in the afternoons. That has been true from last week, middle last week, until Thursday being yesterday. Now, having a look at what we saw yesterday in terms of the actual move, we can see that, and I drew the structure out for you guys yesterday afternoon, if you can recall, right? That we're pushing down to the 61.8. I would then consider maybe a potential long. We got a little bit of a reversal, pushed down to that 78.6. And I remember I said yesterday afternoon session, I would like a deeper retracement. 50 is not enough. 61.8 is a golden ratio, yes. But we do see a lot of 78.6, 88.2 touches. We got that, and USDT reversed. Now, what I want to point out this morning, for those of you, and we've talked about this, we've gone through this in quite a bit of detail. I just want to clean up this chart really quickly so that you can see this, is ultimately when we look at the RSI, right? I've got a buy on US30, and I want to show you how simple this buy was, right? In the sense that we have a trending RSI down to the downside, right? We started to already get that divergence and that confluence sitting right there as we were making these lower lows yesterday afternoon, right? Making lower lows from a price action perspective. However, we can see that divergence sitting on the RSI. We're making higher lows, right? Telling us that there could potentially be a reversal. So that was the first sign. That was yesterday afternoon. Now, would I have just bought it off of that? No, right? Again, we would look for that potential breakout, and then we got that retest this morning. Now, looking at it even closely, this is a 15-minute, right? Looking at it even closer on a 1-minute time frame, it becomes blatantly obvious what was about to happen this morning, and this essential move that we saw this morning. So again, a lot of opportunities were to be had, right? We initially got potential sign for that pullback, which ended up happening. But more importantly than that, I was looking at this morning, where could we potentially get some sort of breakout, or at least move towards the top side in terms of this market structure. In addition to that, we also had this move over here, and this was my initial trigger, right, to start getting and looking at a long position because of 2 reasons, right? First reason being, we were going through this resistance level that we drew through yesterday, right? We can see we've got a decent amount of resistance here. We have quite a bit of data, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we essentially have about 6 points of data to give us that resistance level. And at this point, we started to move towards the top side. And I was fairly convinced based on the RSI that we could receive, right, based on that move there, we could receive a breakout and a move to the top side. And so I bought US 30 already this morning, right? And that was around about 8 o'clock, 7 or 8 o'clock. Now we can start to see that US 30 is trending toward the top side for two reasons. The first reason and the first sentiment being last Friday, we saw that, indice markets rallied after a very bearish week, right? So that was the first thing. I was looking at past data and saying last Friday we had a really good market on stock. We had a really good day on the stock market. Second thing being watching that RSI as I've taught you guys. Now, again, should you want to receive these signals in live format, meaning as and when I take a trade, as and when we identify an opportunity, as and when there's something happening in the markets, then we are going to be sending you an email towards the end of this weekend, if not Monday. And if you have a live account of more than $100, as and when these trades happen, we will send you trade information over what opportunities exist in the market. So again, if your live account's under $100 or you don't have a Globex 360 live account, unfortunately, you're going to be excluded from that, as well as additional shows for the course of next week. As I said, look and feel is about to change substantially, and you want to be a part of that. You want to be a part of the future. In addition to that, guys, if you don't have your cashback wallet set up, go do yourself a favor. If you already have a live Globex 360 account, go ahead and just open a new account, select cashback wallet as the account type, and it'll automatically open and set up a cashback wallet in your navigational menu on the left-hand side. Now, what does this mean? It means that every time you place a trade, Globex will physically give you real money back and share with you a portion of the spread that you can then use to add towards your live account or withdraw for whatever reason or purposes you wish, right? And there are a million other reasons why there's never been a better time, not only to be a trader, but to be a Globex 360 trader. So we are going to look at how this plays out for today. But as you guys know, Fridays, we have our last broadcast being the pounds for breakfast, as we then focus on the new objectives for the new week. So we've seen a fairly slow week this week. It hasn't been anything like the last month of trading where every single day we've been making a profit. It's been a bit of a slow week. We made a profit yesterday live in the markets together, but we are looking for markets to return back to normality tomorrow. So quick tip for today, look for that potential dollar weakness. If we get it, you may want to consider looking at a USD ZAR short. If we get that dollar strength, you may want to consider getting long on USD ZAR. In addition to that, that knock-on effect on the dollar will then obviously translate into commodities. So we start to get weakness on the dollar. We start to see that dollar fall there. That could be exactly the opportunity that gold is looking for a topside move. And this translates into silver. This also translates into Brent as well as crude. So those are going to be the things definitely to catch and keep an eye on for over the course of today. Guys, utilize this weekend to get yourself prepared, because next week is going to be unlike anything you've seen in the past month. As we enter a brand new month and a brand new chapter, I can personally guarantee you we're about to take things to a whole new level. Now, a quick just shout out to every single one is in our chat this afternoon or this morning, sorry. Everyone's saying good morning. Peter, heavily defended, Shamim, Gilbert, Kudzai, Asunda, Ray, Nadir, Liza, Kutwano, Chippo. Beautiful, right? Welcome to every single one of you guys. Next week, we will be including a lot more of the chat in the live show, so you guys can come and interact with us in real and or live time as we obviously move and deal with the markets, right? Just a quick shout out to Sherman BDW for doing your subscription to the channel, meaning every time a new broadcast comes out, you will be notified. And if you want to get that notification, you can obviously click that little notification bell and turn it that it shows all. So every time there's a new upload, it sends you a notification so you never miss out, as well as our live broadcasts, obviously. So that's really going to be our focus point for the balance of the day, is really looking and positioning ourselves accordingly for this next week, right? Next week is going to be big. I can see it. I can feel it. All the data is pointing towards a normalization of the markets. And normal markets is what we know. Normal markets is what we kill. So you want to be a part of that. Like I said, get yourself prepared and already, because a lot of the shows will not be freely broadcast via YouTube. It'll be emailed to you or given to you within a specific group which you want to be a part of. Again, that email will go out towards the end of the weekend, if not on Monday, and then you are part and plugged in directly into the markets with us every single day. Outside of that, guys, remember, as always, remember to live, trade, and do things the Globe X360 way. I will see you guys bright and early on Monday morning as we look at dominating the markets over the next week and starting the new month with an absolute win. Outside of that, guys, thank you for all the love and support this week. Thank you for the comments. Thank you for reaching out, for those of you who've reached out. And we appreciate you as always. Until I see you again a little bit later. Goodbye.